Well, good evening and welcome, or maybe welcome back for those who have been with us all day. And it has been a long day. I'd love to give a huge shout out to anyone who was able to deliver a live stream today, as well as those who will be adding their content because they were unable to join us live today. And it was just strange, but it's going to work out just fine. My name is Annemarie Tracey. I'm here because I believe in compassionate advocacy. I am the co-founder of A Voice at the Table, Impacted Family and Friends Movement. Those are two different groups that are now blended together. I serve on the executive committee of the Massachusetts Coalition for Suicide Prevention, and I do serve as the director for the Bristol County, Massachusetts Suicide Prevention Coalition. We operate under the auspices of MCSP. Um, I want you to know that Tracy Palm. Oh my God, am I tired or what? uh, Tracy Pacheco Maderos is in the control room. She is our producer. And I would like to ask everybody, wherever you are, to stand up and give her a shout out and applause because she has been working behind camera and putting this all together all day long through 5 live streams. That's a lot to ask for anybody. So I want to thank Tracy so much. And it's National Make a Difference Day. And to Tracy and I, that means a lot. And I shared this morning at our 10 o'clock. Um, Back in 2008, Tracy and I happened to be at an event with some students from Taunton High School. And one of them said, "Do you know what we need? What we need is a teen center." And his friend said, "Yeah, well, that will never happen." And Tracy and I looked at each other and we looked at them. We looked at them and we said, "Well, why not?" And they said, "Because if there was supposed to be one, I guess there would be." And the reality is that with a lot of help and a lot of effort and a lot of pushback that we were able to overcome. In 2008, we actually, with community support, opened up a teen center within an unused gym at one of our schools. And in 2009, much to my shock and surprise, I was notified that Silver City Teen Center was going to be receiving a National Make a Difference Day Paul Newman Foundation U.S. Weekend News Foundation $10,000 award for a National Make a Difference Day project for underserved youth who were struggling emotionally. Today's event, which was a series of live streams bringing together people who really wrap themselves around compassionate advocacy. And those people are suicidal ideation survivors, attempt survivors and their impacted family, suicide loss survivors. And our newest group to join us, and we were thrilled to have them today, are survivors of murder suicide, lost survivors of murder suicide. There's a long list of people to thank, and we'll go through that a little bit, and I hope I catch them all. So we started the day at 10 o'clock this morning, and we had Steve Palm come in as our guest, Tracy and I. He's a friend. He's a friend. He's family. But he came in as a guest. Steve is a suicide loss survivor. He and his wife Carrie and son Cam lost Casey 10 years ago at the age of 14 to suicide. And Steve came to that teen center that we had thanks to National Make a Difference Day 2009 award, seeking some help. He didn't know where to go, what to do. And he walked in the door, and I knew immediately who he was, although we had never met. And I tried not to fall apart because I could see the pain in his eyes of what do I do? And so our collaborative journey has been ongoing now for 10 years. And Steve shared the importance of what we have here called kitchen table conversation. You can call it whatever you want because we know they're all over the world, and they are support resources for those who are bereaved by a suicide loss. And Steve often shares when he does presentations and he's out talking within the community how important it was for him to be able to be at a table or even just sitting one on one with someone who had already walked through this path. And that's the whole point of peer-to-peer work that we do with impacted family and friends is we want that lived experience. I want to know how you got to that point that I can't get to right now. Steve also talked a little bit about this wonderful idea that popped into his head, and he shared why. He said he was driving up and down the highway. He's a UPS driver, and he was driving up and down the highway, and he kept seeing these nonprofit signs and these messages up on billboards. And he said, well, why don't we do that? So a year ago, 2 years ago, he did his first series of billboards here in Massachusetts. And it was all about you matter, your life matters, your voice matters, 988. And they took off. He had lawn signs also that matched the billboard, and we have lawn signs now around the country. People have asked for them. Get in touch with us if you're interested in having one. And this year, his billboard project was amazing. He reached out to people on Facebook who had lost someone, particularly youth, to suicide, and ended up with 14 different pictures of young people up on this digital billboard that people were driving by for the entire month of September. And the message that he wanted people to know was that suicide is still the second leading cause of death for young people. Most people say that, oh, I didn't know that. And that these families were willing to step out and share that and share their stories and their pictures of their loved ones was just, I mean, it was goosebump time. And it's being replicated. Western Massachusetts did a similar billboard. And I would challenge all of you out there, it's National Make a Difference Day, but on any day throughout the year, let's put the spotlight on the need to take stigma off suicide, whether it's a young person or someone older. What better way to do that than lawn signs? Imagine the kids going by to school on the buses looking, and you have this sign in your lawn that says, you matter. Your voice matters. Please stay. Life is better here with you here. And you do make a difference. And imagine putting it up on more billboards. I mean, you can see some pretty silly signs when you travel a lot. Wouldn't it be nice to see something as compassionately advocating for all of us becoming better informed and being willing to take a step to help someone who's struggling with suicidal ideation or even just anxiety, depression. So that was what Steve talked about. We offer a little bit more about impacted family and friends. We have a new website that's under construction, iffresources.com. And please start going there and check it out on a weekly basis because it'll be being updated with new information over and over. You'll be able to have some free downloads. There may be some things that might be monetized, but not for a while yet. All the videos, all these live streams that we did today, all of them are going to be embedded up on iffresources.com, and they will be available for people to watch anytime, 24/7 that they want to go online and do that. So after Steve, that was at 10 o'clock. We had anticipated that we would be having a intriguing live stream called The Scarlet S with Judy and Nina from Miami. Unfortunately, they had a horrific family medical crisis and were unable to come on board to do the live streams, but we are going to reschedule and record them for a later time. So don't worry about that. And what they have prepared will be included in a notebook that I'll talk about in a little bit. So, and our prayers are with Judy and Nina and their family, and we hope everything turns out well for their family member. Um, Following that, at 2 o'clock, we had Dr. Pata Tsuyamoto, who is a member of the executive committee with me here in the Massachusetts Coalition for Suicide Prevention. And she did her sharing through the lens of another organization that she's very involved with in, it's NAPIMA, the National Asian American Pacific Island Mental Health Association. And Pada does a lot of her suicide prevention work, her post-prevention work, her education, her diversity, equity, inclusion work with NAPIMA. NAPIMA also has another chapter, and it's called NAPIAN, and that is really for their lived experience people who have ideation or attempt, and the impacted families. So she brought to attention that, like so many other groups, they're marginalized, and people don't often give enough attention to the marginalized populations that we have when it comes to suicidality. The stigma is still there. It's very difficult. There are not enough resources for any of this. And Pada often shares the same thing that Nina and Judy find: two different populations. One's a Cuban American population, the other one is an Asian American, Pacific Island, Hawaiian Islanders, that discussing suicide, discussing ideation is taboo. And that's, to me, that would be such a scary thought, that we couldn't talk openly about this and make sure people got their help. But that is one of the issues that Pada brings to the table all the time. She's a delight to have around. So tonight we're also going to talk about the next steps. What do we do with this? We spent all day today doing live streams. Weeks coming up. Not too many, not months, but days and weeks preparing for this. Well, what happens to all this information? What happens to all this film, all this live stream? Our next step will be to download transcripts. And one of the joys is that StreamYard, which is the vehicle we use for that, allows us to download those transcripts in 7 different languages. How exciting is that? To be able to take our work and not only put it into a notebook, but put it into a notebook that we can have in 7 different languages, right? Boom, right like that. And so that will be the next step. Once we get these all cleaned up and embedded into our website, then we download the transcripts and we create a notebook, and I'll show you what it will look like as I start to talk about the next group that we had on. The notebook will look something like this, except it will have a different cover. And this notebook applies to the 4 o'clock group we had today, and that is a relatively new entity within the field of suicide post-prevention work, and it is the Survivors, it's Murder, Suicide, Loss Survivors Network. Murder, Suicide, Loss Survivors Network. And they, exactly what you're thinking. We had Mitch and Connie and Jenna come on today and take a deep breath and share just a small snippet of the story that and the burden that they carry with that trauma and stress through day-to-day living and work. And we were so delighted. Now, we had 3 other murder-suicide survivors who were not able to make today, Stephanie Willard, Tina C., and Michael Vinton. And when we put together the notebook that I mentioned, their input will be in there. In addition to their input, we'll also have Dr. Jen Carson, who's an attempt survivor from the West Coast. She is also an Elizabeth Dole award-winning fellow. She has that on her little list of things that she does. She takes care of her veteran stepdad, and that the Elizabeth Stoll Foundation awards people recognition for the work that they do for veterans, and particularly in that kind of caregiving. Um, we also had a member that could not make it, one of our own Bristol County members, and his name is Joseph Marks. Joseph is 22 years old, and I am not exaggerating, has been a part of our Bristol County Coalition work for 10 years. He showed up with his family for our first Light the Way Suicide Prevention Awareness Walk that we hold, not every year, but some years. And there he was, this very young person, now a 22-year-old graduate of UMass Dartmouth, an ideation attempt survivor, and a facilitator for some of our workshops. And that's the important piece. So what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about resources. So our Murder Suicide Loss Survivor Network has a group online, and they gave us information today about how that group operates and what it does. And you will find that information on our IFFresources.com website. Their website, Tracy, I hope I get this right, is mslnetwork.org. I'm pretty sure that's it. But if not, just check on my email and send something to me, and I will make sure you get it in the information. My email, if anybody needs it, wants questions, is matulisannie@msn.com. And so the wrap up is, we don't stop here. We can't stop here. National Make a Difference Day should be every day. It's like Suicide Prevention Day should be every day. It's super important, and you can see there the number for 988. It was startling to find out how many people in this country were not aware. Some people may remember the 1-800 number that everybody would talk about. This is just a nice short version of that. It goes to the same place, same people, same resources. So what you would want, if you have someone you love at any age, and they're experiencing, even if you feel it's just a little bit of anxiety and depression, that might be a whole lot of anxiety and depression for them. Please, I have allergies, sorry. You can call 988 as an impacted family, and you can talk to someone at 988 and find out about resources that are available. But most importantly, if someone's in crisis, they can call or text 988. There is also a Spanish option to it, and there's a veterans option to it. It's invaluable to have this number going on. So this is what our day was about. And what are we going to do in the next steps? We're taking everything, and it's going to go in a workbook that looked very much like the one, let me try it again, that I held up in front of me. Okay. This one is Untold Stories of Murder Suicide, and it's snippets. It's not a dissertation. It's some general sharing from several survivors of murder suicide, where they discuss the difficulties of adjusting to life's new normal, and the importance of all of us doing our best to duplicate services. They have one group. We in Impacted Family and Friends we're doing a number of groups online for a couple of years. That funding ended. So we're going to be putting things up on our new website, IFFresources.com, where you can engage either with some free downloads for our worksheets that we have available. And you might be talking about Dreams Matter. You might be talking about, is it okay to be angry? You might be talking about anger. And And then there is the F word. Not that one, but more difficult than that one, forgiveness. That's a huge hump for a lot of people to get over. If you have lost someone to suicide, you have someone who has had a suicide attempt. Life can be terrifying, fearful, and we get angry sometimes. And sometimes it's okay. We just work it through. We work it through. But we also talk about the importance of self care, soul care, not self care, soul care. Because in Impacted Family and Friends, we are focused on the oxygen mask axiom, and it applies across the board to everyone we saw today. If I'm not taking care of myself, I'm of no value to anybody else. So I have to step back and say, you're too cranky, you're too controlling. You need to just step down and step back, and focus on finding emotional balance. Some people can do that on their own. That's awesome and cool. And some people prefer to have a 2 or 3 people or maybe a round table. And at IFF, that's what we do. We don't do trainings. Um, we have conversational roundtables for mentoring. We encourage you how to get to the next step, how to get through the next day. It is not counseling and it is not coaching. It's very different. It's very cool. Really, it's like, here's my lived experience. You can use it and maybe it won't work, but maybe it will help you understand what's going on with you, with you. So that's what we're all about. We had support for loss survivors, how to do billboards and lawn signs. A little bit of a difference there. All right. We had Pada talk about the difficulties within the Asian American, Hawaiian Islands, and Pacific Island communities of even talking about mental health and suicide. And then the powerful sharing of those who have been traumatized and impacted by a murder suicide. With all of that said, the tone has been positive. That may sound like real heavy lifting, and sometimes it is, but the reality is we all have one common denominator. We know how it feels to step up and turn around and say, where are the resources? Where's someone I can talk to? Someone who has my lived experience. And that's what this is all about, making a difference. Knowing that we call it lifting the spirits of others. You made a difference for me today. Tracey being in the control room to do the production is a lifesaver for me. I am now partially blind. I can't do that work anymore. And it is such a joy to have someone who can and to do that. And to know that Mitch and his crew from his group also know other people who are murder, suicide, loss survivors, and they exchange information. There are podcasts, there's groups, there's literature now that's developing. And that's a story of hope to me. That's creating hope through action. I think that's probably one of the keys to making a difference. Have to take action. It's just so important. Someone once said to me, the rice is not going to cook itself. You have to take some action to make sure that it gets cooked properly. And so that's our message to you. Compassionate, caring, and advocacy. Doesn't have to be monumental. Maybe, as was mentioned today, maybe you just open the door for someone. Maybe you remember to say please and thank you. Have you shared with someone that you really do appreciate them? All of that combined puts together what we were talking about today, making a difference in someone else's life so they see that they do have reasons for living and have a life of quality, one worth living, making a difference. We can all do it, large or small. And if we dedicate ourselves to that, wow, wouldn't that be awesome? And here's my challenge to you. Come back again next year so we can tell you all the work that's been done with that workbook that we're putting together, and we start the next version of that. In the meantime, we're going year round. Impacted Family and Friends, iffresources.com, and you'll find a wealth of information available to you. I wish you well. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you.